Welcome to Waking Up to God's Love with John and Sue Love, along with spiritual seekers asking questions. The time is now. It's time to wake up to all the lies. It's time to remember who you are and to know that there is a power greater than you. This podcast is all about the awakening process and how to reach the fifth dimension. But what does waking up to God's love have to do with entering the fifth dimension? Everything. Now, after the podcast, be sure to check out our free website, www.wakinguptogodslove.com. And please be sure to like us and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Hi, I'm Sue.
And I'm John, and welcome to Waking Up to God's Love podcast. Today's episode, number 22, is called Nothing is Impossible. We hope you had a chance to watch last week's episode, number 21, called Anything is Possible. In that episode, Sue shared many of her personal true stories of how God or her angels kept her safe from harm. Now, for most people, they would have a hard time believing it is possible, but these are true stories, and they really did happen. We want to share them with you to let you know that anything is possible and that it can happen to you too. Now, in that episode, Anything is Possible, Sue focused more on protection, on how God or her angels kept her safe from harm. In this episode, Nothing is Impossible, we'll be sharing more about Sue's supernatural phenomenon, as well as an experience that both Sue and I got to experience together. These are things that are hard to wrap your mind around, like no way can that happen. We found that supernatural phenomena can happen all the time if we are open to it. Now, in this episode, we'll be talking about supernatural phenomena of manifesting, time travel, and gifts and healing from the other side. Now, our first two stories will be about manifesting. Sue, would you like to start and share?
Yes, I would. It only happened for one summer back in 2008, when the economy was not doing well. People were losing their homes, and the entire financial system was on the verge of collapse. Back then, I had my own business. It was a roadside business where I sold jerky, nuts, and snacks. I started that business back in 1995. I had no idea what was going on in the outside world. I never listened to the news or even watched TV. I was in my own little world, creating what I wanted. That summer of 2008, I was really going inside, asking to be able to manifest a lot of money, because in the beginning of the season, sales were slow, and I needed to make some money. When one day, a miracle happened, or I should say, a supernatural phenomena happened. I always brought my products in coolers. Example, I would put all my jerky in what is called a big camping cooler. Anyway, I always started the day with the coolers full of jerky and nuts. Now, if I had a good day, at the end of the day, the cooler would be empty, right?
Right.
And if I had a bad day, at the end of the day, the cooler would still be full, right?
Right.
Well, this one day, I was having a fantastic day, and at the end of the day, I was counting the money to see how much I made. Up to this point, business has been slow, so I was excited to have a great day of sales. It was actually one of the best days that I've ever had since I started my business. When I went to check on the cooler to do my inventory, I was expecting the coolers to be empty or maybe a little bit left, right?
Right.
But to my surprise, the cooler was still full. Whoa! I mean, how is that possible? I checked all the other coolers. Every one of them were all full. How is that possible? How can you have a record day of sales and yet the coolers is still full of jerky? How is that possible?
That is a good question. How is that possible?
Now, the next day I went to work and it happened again. It happened all summer long. I was having great sales. The coolers were still full of jerky and nuts. Now, remember, it was 2008 and the economy was not doing well. Now, it only happened for 3 months. It never happened before and it has never happened again. Now, at the end of the year, it's time to do my taxes. I looked at all the purchases I made for that year. And after I looked at what purchases I made and what money I actually brought in, whoa, there was over $20,000 of sales that I wasn't able to explain. It was like $20,000 just appeared out of thin air.
Wow.
Thank you, God. To this day, I still don't know how it happened. Only that I was feeling really happy. I was in a very high vibration, even though the rest of the world was not doing well. John, would you like to share our story of manifesting?
Yes, I would. Now, most of these stories are from Sue's experiences before we met. However, there is an amazing story that happened to us together that I would love to share. We were traveling from southwestern Colorado to eastern Nebraska to visit Sue's dad, who was in the hospital. Now, for us, this is a 2-day trip. The first day, we barely made it into far western Nebraska before we needed to stop for the night. I noticed as we were parking at the hotel that the car was very low on gas, but because I was tired, I chose to wait until morning to gas up before getting back on the interstate. In the morning, Sue and I were so engaged in our conversation after breakfast that I totally forgot about getting gas. We got on I-80 and headed east for the long drive across Nebraska. After we'd been on the road for about 3 hours, I noticed a flashing light on the dashboard. I quickly realized it was telling me that we needed gas. I looked at the fuel gauge and it was showing totally empty. The car's computer showed we had 0 miles left and it too was flashing. At that point, I remembered that I was supposed to get gas that morning and that I had forgotten. Oh, crap. That was over 200 miles ago. I told Sue, we are in trouble and we need gas now. We were in the middle of a long stretch between cities and I realized that we needed to ask for help. Sue started asking God and her angels for help, and she began visualizing a gas station for us. After about a minute or two, we saw an exit sign, and the sign showed that it had gas. Okay, so we took the exit, and sure enough, there was a gas station right next to the exit ramp, so we could coast in with a right turn. The car completely ran out of gas just as we coasted up to the pump. Whew. Sue got out to use the restroom, and I started gassing up the car. Now, as I was putting the gas in the car, I noticed that there were no other cars at the gas station, not even for an employee. Then I noticed that everything was brand new. There were no signs of any gas or oil spills. The pumps were spotless and absolutely everything was brand new. I remember thinking how unusual it was for a gas station to be this clean. When I finished putting gas in the car, I looked and the pump said that I had put in 11.3 gallons of gas into this car. Well, I knew for a fact from reading the car's owner's manual that this car only held 9.3 gallons of gas. I had the pump print out the receipt so that I could show it to Sue. I then walked into the gas station and was further amazed that the entire inside of the gas station was also absolutely spotless, and all the shelves were completely, perfectly stocked. There was one employee working, just one, and no other customers besides Sue and myself. Well, I needed to go to the bathroom, so I went to the restroom, and again, it was absolutely spotless. Wow. So when I finished, I said goodbye to the attendant and I joined Sue back in the car. I told Sue about putting 11.3 gallons of gas into this car's 9.3 gallon tank, and I showed her the receipt to prove it. We both shook our heads in amazement and gave thanks for this gas station being there for us. Now, as we returned to the interstate, we both made note of the mile marker so we could stop and gas up on our return trip. We continued on to visit Sue's dad, and after a couple of days, we got back onto I-80 for the return trip. To our astonishment, when we got to the mile marker where the gas station had been, there was no gas station. There wasn't even an exit. Nothing. The entire exit and gas station were gone, as if they never existed. Apparently, God and our angels manifested the station and the exit and everything for us out of thin air, and once we no longer needed it, both the gas station and the exit disappeared into thin air. What's more, I went to tell someone about this experience, and I reached into my pocket for the receipt, only to discover that the receipt had also disappeared into thin air. This proved to us that indeed nothing is impossible for God and your angels. You just got to ask and believe. Now, Sue's going to share how she was able to time travel.
In my early 20s, I worked for a big corporation, and I worked graveyards from midnight to 8 a.m. Now, where I lived, it took 30 minutes to get to work. Well, one night, I saw that it was 11:50 p.m. I had to be at work in 10 minutes. I could not be late. So I ran to my car, and I got in, and I asked God, please help me, I can't be late. And as I was driving out of the driveway, and I blinked my eyes, the next thing I knew, I was pulling into the parking lot at work. Whoa, what just happened?
Yeah.
And as I walked into my office, it was exactly 12 midnight. Whoa, how is that possible? I only had 10 minutes to get to my car, drive, and then into my office, when it took at least 30 minutes to drive, another 5 minutes to walk to my car, and another 5 minutes to walk into my office. That's 40 minutes. And yet, I made it all in 10 minutes.
Wow.
How is that possible? Now, two things I want to share. First, it didn't just happen that one night. It happened all the time, whenever I was running late. Second, whenever it would happen, the next morning after it happened, it would always take me over a half an hour longer to get home.
Wow.
Meaning it would take me anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half to get home. So what I realized was I borrowed time from the future, and then I had to pay it back on the return. When I was paying it back on the return, the extra amount of time it took to get home, it was equal to how much more quicker I made it to work to make things balance.
That's so cool.
Just like when John and I were on the interstate and we had forgotten to gas up. The universe helped us to keep us going by borrowing gas from the future. That is why when we did fuel up, we had to buy more gas. 11.3 gallon, which is over 2 gallons more than what the tank held. We had to buy the gas that we borrowed from the universe, thus balancing the universe.
How cool is that?
Now, my next two stories are very dear to me because of the healing I received and the gift of love I received. Back in 2007, my older brother Jesse, not his real name, was dying of cancer. As a child, my brother was sexually inappropriate with me. I had forgiven my brother, and when I found out he was dying, I was hoping we could make peace with each other before he died. So I kept asking my brother to please forgive me. If I've done anything to hurt you, please forgive me. hoping to give him a chance to say that he was sorry for his action. He told me I did nothing to hurt him, and he refused to say he was sorry. I accepted that. Now my brother finally died, and a month later, I was on vacation down in Arizona and was sitting inside my RV by myself. As I was sitting on the couch looking out the window, something got my attention. I looked over to the door by the bathroom and kitchen area, about 15 feet from where I was sitting, and there was my brother, Jesse. Oh my God. But he was only very transparent. I could barely make him out. But I could tell he was wearing his favorite suit that he used to love to wear. I just sat there in awe watching him. And then he started to walk towards me. And he stopped right in front of me. And he spoke to me. I actually heard his voice loud and clear. And all he said was, "I am sorry." That's it. I am sorry. Then he turns around and he walks through the door without opening the door, and he just disappeared. Wow, it was the healing I was seeking and needing. We were finally at peace with each other.
Cool.
3 days later, my ex-husband and I traveled to Moab, Utah to go ATVing, or in other words, four-wheelers. Now, as we were driving our ATV, we went into a dead-end canyon, and we were tired. So we found this rock that we could climb that was perfect for taking a nap. After laying down for about 30 minutes, my ex sat up, and I saw there was something written underneath of him that was not there before. It's like, whoa. So we got off the rock to see what was written on the rock. It was a big circle with 2 dots for eyes and a big smile. Wow! It was a smiley face. And what was even more amazing was below were letterings. J-E-S-S-E. Jesse. Jesse is my brother's name. And Jesse had sloppy handwriting, and it was definitely his handwriting. Wow! How is that possible? There was no writing before we got on the rock. How could Jesse do it when he's on the other side? Now, later that day, we were riding on a very dangerous trail. I was scared to ride it, and I told my ex I could not do it. Let's not go on it. When all of a sudden, I felt Jesse coming to my body. Now, Jesse was always a daredevil, and I got this knowingness that Jesse wanted to drive for one last time. So I said to my ex-husband, "Okay, let's do it." Now, if you remember from our last episode, Anything's Possible, I shared how my angels or guides love to drive. So it was only natural to allow Jesse to come into my body and drive. As I started to drive the ATV, I could feel Jesse's excitement. God, he was so excited. And all my fears just disappeared. It was like, whoa. I could feel Jesse having fun. And I was having a blast, doing things that would normally scare the crap out of me. But I never had so much fun. My ex kept looking back at me from time to time in total amazement, not believing I was driving so recklessly. That's not like me. And when we came to the end of the trail, like that, Jesse was gone. I told my ex what happened, and he said, "Now I understand why you drove like that. And that is something Jesse would do." One last thing I want to share. At the end of our last day, there was a sandy beach. I was playing in the sand, and I wrote, "I love you, Jesse." And just like that, a beautiful white bird came flying down, real low, and almost touched me. Then it flapped its wings as if to say, "I love you," and say goodbye. It was my last encounter I ever had with him. Now, how is that possible? First, to appear out of thin air and say, "I am sorry." Then write a message on the rock to let me know that he's okay and he's doing well and he's happy. Then to be able to let him come inside of me to have his last final wish to come true, to drive like a daredevil. And finally, having Jesse become a bird so he could say his final goodbye and let me know how much he loved me. It was a powerful week and so much healing. And now, my last story is one that is very dear to me. I was with my mom for a week when she was dying, but I had no idea when that would happen. The doctor said it would probably take weeks. After being there for a week, I had to go back home, as the next day I was going to go on a 4-day kayak trip down the Colorado River. I said my goodbye to my mom in the hospital. When I got home, and also the next day, I called my mom to see how she was doing before I left on my kayak trip. She said she was okay. I kept feeling guilty for leaving her and going on my trip, but my mom insisted, go and have fun. So I did. On Thursday, my girlfriend drove us, and it took 8 hours to get there. As soon as we got to the town, just before the campsite, I called my ex-husband to let him know that I made it okay. And he told me my mom took a turn for the worse, and the doctor said she won't make it through the weekend. Oh, now today is Thursday, and we'll be taking off first thing in the morning. What do I do? What do I do? I had no car to drive home, and when we got to the camp, there was no cell service. All night I felt so much shame and guilt. I always promised my mom I would be there for her to help her with her transition. But throughout the night, I felt Mom nudging me to go. Morning time came, and off we go. My whole life, I felt so much shame and guilt. And now this. It was really hard to have fun. Several times while paddling in the kayak, I felt my mom sitting right in front of me. We were actually talking to each other, which gave me comfort. There were several cool things that happened during the trip that made me realize that my mom was truly with me. Finally, it's Monday morning, time to take our last leg of the trip. I found out Thursday that my mom was dying, and here it is, Monday, and I don't have a clue whether she's alive or gone home. We had no cell service the whole time. I got up early before everyone else, and I walked down to the river to say my goodbye to my mom. As I was walking the trail, there was nothing on the ground except dirt. I started throwing rocks, saying my goodbye, telling my mom how much I loved her, telling my mom how much I'm so sorry for not being with her, feeling all this shame and guilt, and asking my mom, can you please forgive me? When I felt complete, I turned around, and about a foot in front of me on the ground is the most perfect, beautiful seashell. What? Where did that come from? It wasn't there before. It just appeared out of nowhere. I mean, it's an ocean seashell. It doesn't belong on the Colorado River. It was so perfect. No dirt on it. You couldn't even buy something that perfect if you wanted to. And then I felt this love go through my body. It came from my mom. I felt all this love from my mom. The seashell was a gift from my mom to tell me that she loved me. My mom did not want me to feel shame and guilt. And my mom did not want me to be with her when she made her transition. By late afternoon, we finally got to our final destination. My ex-husband was waiting for me and told me that my mom died Saturday night. So that seashell was a gift from heaven. I mean, there's no other way you can explain it. How a perfect, beautiful seashell could appear right out of thin air at my feet on the Colorado River, where it is an ocean seashell. By the way, if you want to see the picture of the seashell, you can go to our website, wakinguptogodslove.com. and you can go to our Inspiration Story tab and look for the story called A Gift from Heaven. Plus, there are several other inspiration stories you can read too. Now, every time I look at this seashell, it reminds me how much my mom loved me, and she's still there with me in spirit. And it's time to let go of all my shame and guilt. It's time to be free. Now, these are just a few stories we wanted to share. I have so many more I could share, but only wanted to share a few stories to prove to you that nothing is impossible, including a time when I was able to go on a spaceship, which is for another time.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. So yes, anything is possible and nothing is impossible. We know that we are not the only ones who have experienced or encountered angels or have had supernatural phenomena. We would love to hear your stories. You can go to our website, wakinguptogodslove.com, and go to the Contact Us page, and please email us and share your stories. Now, next week's episode, number 23, is called More Amazing Miracles. Like we shared, we have so many stories we can share. So these next stories will be more about miracles. Now, whether they are big or small, miracles can happen every day to both you and us. So be sure to listen. You won't want to miss out on more exciting true stories. By the way, if you have not already, make sure you listen to our last episode, Anything is Possible.
Be sure to like us and follow us so you never miss a single episode. And please share this podcast with your friends and family. Remember to check out our free website, wakinguptogodslove.com. There is so much valuable information in the website.
Yes, there is. There's just so much in the website. And as we've shared before, this podcast and our website are both free. And if what we have shared has touched your heart and you feel guided to give, we would greatly appreciate any donation.
God is reminding me to tell you that God loves you and you are never, ever alone.
Thank you for joining us today and being a part of our life, and may your heart be filled with God's love.
We hope you have enjoyed our podcast today. Please be sure to go to our free website and check out everything that Waking Up to God's Love has to offer. The website is www.wakinguptogodslove.com. If you have enjoyed this podcast, then please share with friends and family. And we want to remind you to please like us and follow us so that you don't miss a single episode. And as we shared before, this podcast and our website are both free, so we would greatly appreciate any love donation. God is reminding me to tell you that God loves you and you are never, ever alone. Until next time.